Hello and welcome to Taylor Talks Comics. Today we are going to talk about For Better or For Worse, The Complete Library, Volume 5. Okay, so this is For Better or For Worse, The Complete Library, Volume 5. First I want to thank Curtis Findley, IDW, and the Library of American Comics for sending me this. They were sending out review copies and I hit them up and said that I was very much interested, and they sent me this copy, so it's awesome. So this is Volume 5. Every edition so far that's come out looks just like this, and you can see the spine. And I do want to say that I love the spine that doesn't say Volume 5 on the spine, so it doesn't look weird on my shelf, because I don't actually have Volumes 1 through 4 yet, which I'll talk about that in a little bit, but it does have the years, so this looks really cool like that. And then you can see the IDW logo, the Library of American Comics, Lynn Johnston, For Better or Worse logo lettering there. And here's the back cover with a description of what you're going to get in the volume. It says it includes more than 1,200 sequential daily and Sunday strips from April 93 through 1996, with all the Sunday comics printed in the original color. You can see the price tag there is $49.99 in the US, $65.99 in Canada. All right, so this is just a beautiful, I can't express how much this hardcover is such a great collection, and I actually love the Library of American Comics collections as a whole. They do an amazing job with restoring old comic strips and then bringing them back to the way you remember reading them in the paper, and then also just collecting them in a format that's easy to read all the way through. So you open it up here and you get these nice pink end papers, and then white paper's a little image right there. And then here's all the people that worked on this book. I'm trying not to knock the camera while I do this because this book is kind of long here. And I love that this little added touch, because this is a Canadian comic strip. Lynn Johnston, the writer, is from Canada, so they added a little like Library of North American Comics, and then you can see all the people worked on that. And Curtis Findley, the one I was in contact with, he helps restore this too. So, and I've talked to him online a few times. He's got his own podcast and Facebook group and stuff like that. So. And this is a foreword from Jane Elliott, and she just talks about how she met Lynn Johnston and that it kind of grew into her doing her own strips. And then, let's switch page. And this is a full introduction from Curtis Findley, the aforementioned. And I love this too. They forewarn you. It says right here, spoiler alert. Important story elements are revealed in this introduction, and readers may wish to read the strips before this essay. So it's great because sometimes introductions and collected editions of comics, comic books, comic strips, whatever, are kind of tricky. Sometimes the person that writes the introduction will write about the elements of the story you're about to read, and it could be kind of spoilery. I've heard a number of stories where people are like, yeah, I read the introduction and it spoiled the whole book for me. And then sometimes they keep the introduction about the kind of the material without getting into spoilers. Regardless, I love that they put a spoiler alert there so that Curtis was free to write about the elements that he wanted to without spoiling it for you. So you were able to read the rest of the book, and then you can go back to the introduction if you wish. So For Better or For Worse was a comic strip that ran from 1979 to 2008, which is a long time. And I was going to flip through here. as you can see, the format is very much, you get 6 daily strips. So the daily strips ran 4 panels. And you get 6 daily strips, and then a Sunday strip. And the Sunday strips are always color. If you're not familiar with newspaper comics, how they work in that format. So for better or for worse, ran a long time in the newspaper, and was very popular. And one of the unique things about it that is similar to, if you're familiar with like Walton Skizik's Gasoline Alley, those strips kind of did this too, but all the characters will age in real time, which is unique for newspaper comic strips. A lot of times you'll get, like, think of like Peanuts, think of like Calvin and Hobbes or Ziggy or what have you, any of the popular comic strips that you can think of. Those characters never really aged, per se. Like Peanuts ran for like, what, 50 years, I think? Charlie Brown, you never saw him in his 50s. But these characters do. And that's a unique thing because then you get the opportunity to age with the characters, and you get to see how they progress through the years, through different things. Like the 2 parents have their kids, and you see the kids grow up into be teenagers. In this collection, you'll start to see the growth of their youngest daughter, who was kind of a surprise baby. The mom had her when she was a little bit older, so you have like the 2 teenagers and then a baby sister. So it kind of adds a unique dynamic there. And Lynn Johnston has a great voice for these characters too. So like I said, this is the first volume of this that I own, but I have read For Better For Worse previously. I used to almost religiously read the funny papers, the funny section of the newspaper. Throughout childhood, throughout high school. One of my high school classes had newspapers in it. Every day you just go grab a newspaper, and I would always just go and grab the sports section and the comics and just read those. So I'm very much familiar with For Better For Worse in that aspect, but I never actually read it in this format before, which was great because they tell a lot of good ongoing stories. And the tough thing with comic strips is you have 4 panels to tell a story in that day, and you have to have almost a complete story, like a satisfying story within those 4 panels, that if anybody for the first time picks up the newspaper, they'll be able to understand what's going on and enjoy it. However, with that, you're having to tell an ongoing story through that. So it's almost like you need a satisfying story in the 4 panels, and then you need to connect it to the next 4 panels, and then keep going. I don't know if I'm explaining that right, or explaining it in a way that makes sense, but it's a challenge. But it's one of those things that, like, I love to see how cartoonists will attack that challenge. That's one of the things I love about newspaper strips. And in the way this is formatted, and in the way every newspaper strip is formatted, is that you'll have an ongoing story with the dailies, which are the black and white ones, and then the Sunday strip will be its own thing. So it won't necessarily connect to what's going on in their lives before and after. It'll be kind of its own little gag, if you will, assuming that people that are reading the Sunday newspapers, some people would only get the Sunday paper, some people would only read the Sunday funny papers, that kind of thing. So it's a tough challenge, and I think Lynn Johnston does an amazing job of that, of being able to tell that funny story within the 4 panels, and then tell an ongoing story too, where you're seeing these characters progress through their lives. It's a tough ask, and she nails it. But also this collection is great because it adds all these little notations from Lynn Johnston. Something that I love in the collected newspaper strips. Like, my favorite ones, I think, are Pearls Before Swine. And those collections, Stefan Pastis always does notations like that too. So, but those aren't Library American comics. Those are just, I don't even know what company prints those. But again, some notations. And the notations will tell you things like that Lynn Johnston was going through in her life that kind of relate to the strip. It'll maybe tell you like the influence or where that strip came about. So it's just awesome that they did that. So what I'm here to tell you is that this is volume 5, and this was sent to me for review, and now I am absolutely going to go hunt down volumes 1 through 4 and continue on from there. Reading this was such an enjoyment for me. There's so many different relatable characters in here that you can relate to each character in one way or another. You can relate to the younger daughter with her whimsical innocence of like silliness. Like you can relate to that. You can relate to the parents if you are a parent, which I am. You can relate to their marriage if you're married, which again I am, and then it's the teenage kids. You can relate to them remembering being a teenager, and how everything is so important to them, and every moment in their life is the most important moment of their life. When really, in hindsight, you look back on your teenage years and you're like, man, why did I make such a big deal about that? So just a great comic book, a great collection, beautifully done. It's on this beautiful glossy paper. The hardcover's great. The binding is wonderful, as I can show you. It lays completely flat. And you don't really have an eye in there, but you don't really need one because this isn't like your typical like Marvel omnibus or anything, because not only is there a giant gutter on each side, so you're not losing any artwork in there, but also the pages are so long because they're done in that long strip format that it's going to lay flat no matter where you are in the book. Like, I go to the beginning of the book and it's going to lay flat. Same thing for the end of the book. Makes for a really good reading experience. But yeah, this is a beautiful collection. Again, I want to thank IDW and Library of American Comics and Curtis for sending it to me. And now I have to go hunt down volumes 1 through 4, and maybe you'll see more videos on that in the future. But I highly recommend this. And again, the great thing with newspaper strips, like I talked about, they're having to write as if like this was like your first strip you ever read, because they never knew who was going to pick up the newspaper. So in that, you can pick up any volume of this and get a satisfying and complete experience. So if you can only find volume 5 or 4 or what have you, I know right now volumes 1, 2, 4, and 5 seem to be in print. Volume 3 seems to be out of print and kind of hard to find. I did look that up, which if someone can help me find volume 3, let me know in the comments down below. But you can pick up any volume and still get a satisfying experience out of it. You don't need that volume 1 necessarily. And like I said, on your shelf it won't look silly because it doesn't say volume number on it, it just tells you the years. So if you only find one random volume to try it out, have at it. But this was great. So thank you guys for watching. Please like the video, subscribe, comment down below with your thoughts on your favorite newspaper strips, your favorite for better or for worse stories. And yeah, so thanks for watching.